Hi, I need to tell you about the Moms Moving On membership community. I can't believe you're not a part of it yet. Being a Moms Moving On member means that you have entered a world of all of the best and most useful advice to guide you along on your own moving on journey. Combined with monthly coaching webinars at no extra cost and our private Moms Moving On Facebook group where you can all connect with each other. My Moms Moving On membership community was based out of a need that I had back when I was getting divorced and just couldn't find, but it is the place for lemonade makers. I've rounded up my go-to experts to put together curated content just for you, including a free monthly webinar with me, self-confidence boosters, co-parenting tips and strategies, heartbreak advice, divorce anxiety relief, legal advice from top US attorneys and mediators, financial advice, ebooks to help you on your journey, journal prompts and worksheets, discounts for all of my favorite brands, playlists to get you in the mood no matter the mood, my direct number for when you need extra advice, and of course, discounts on workshops. We're back with another Moms Moving On. I'm so glad you're here today because today we get to answer questions that I too had so many of them in the beginning of my own split and wish I had more clarity on. But not to worry, I have two amazing women here today who are going to break it all down for you. We're talking about money. This is Karen and Catherine, and through their professional and personal experiences in their company, My Divorce Solution, they've created a unique and comprehensive process that greets divorce in a whole new way, a way that empowers those who experience this major life transition. Their mission is simple: to help people move through the divorce process with financial clarity and confidence so they can make the rest of their lives the best of their lives. If that doesn't sound good to you, I don't think anything will. That's beautiful. Catherine Shanahan and Karen Shalou, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much for having us. We're thrilled.
As I was saying before we started recording, there are so many women who come to me with the same question. How am I supposed to do this? I don't work. I don't know how much money he has. I have kids. Is it worth even trying to leave? Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more about what you do, and then we'll dive into that.
Okay, that sounds great. And again, thank you for having us on your podcast. We're thrilled to be here. So Catherine and I created My Divorce Solution based on our mutual experience through our divorce process. Catherine comes from many years in the financial industry, and I come from many years in the legal industry. And so we combined our unique experience to create a platform for people approaching the divorce process, or even if you're already midway in and stuck. And that platform is creating financial clarity. And we call that the development of the MDS financial portrait. Because if you don't have financial clarity, you really can't move ahead. And sometimes people need that clarity to even know if they want to move ahead. And so the financial portrait is a compilation of data and documents and your budget that helps you know what you have. It helps you know what you will be dividing. And it helps you know what you can generally anticipate post-divorce if you decide to go down that path. And with that in hand, and we could talk about that document, it usually ranges between 30 and 50 pages. It's very comprehensive. Your divorce professionals would love you if you walk into their office with this. But that's generally what it is. And then we'll move along through that because I really could talk an entire hour about all the components of the MDS financial portrait.
Yeah, I won't let her do that to you right now.
I think it's for those of us who literally have, if you're not a finance person, you have no idea, I myself was already making my own money when I got divorced, but that doesn't mean I was managing it well or knew if I had enough to survive. So I'm so happy we're having this conversation because oftentimes I hear, my marriage is so bad, but even if I wanted to leave, I couldn't afford to. And that's where I think a lot of people, like you said, Karen, get stuck. And that stuck is what we don't want for women, right? Like if they feel that they need to leave this marriage, they should know that there are options. But like, what do we need to know?
It's always interesting before we go into the top 5 or top 3. It's always interesting when we have someone come and ask us questions. I'm staying here for 20 years because I never saved in my IRA. my husband saved in his pension, but I just raised the kids and I stayed home and he didn't put any money into my pension, or vice versa. It could go either way, of course. Or I inherited money and I'll just die if my spouse gets that money. I'm not leaving because I'm not giving him my mom's money. She would roll over in her grave. And then when you go through your financial portrait and you realize that maybe that inheritance was never commingled and it's a separate asset and your spouse would not get it. Or you realize that that pension, although it's in your spouse's name, or that 401k is in your spouse's name and your name is not on it, that's a marital asset if it was acquired during your marriage. So to see the look on women's faces in particular, and I hate to single out women because it's men as well, but to see the look on someone's face when you tell them this is a marital asset, and you could walk away with a percentage of that, 50% or another, depending on what state you're in, a portion of that's your asset as well. They're like, shit, I stayed this long and I could have left. That's my money too. They get that realization.
Yeah,
right?
That's huge. And then if you pair that with so many women are in the mindset of, well, he said he's only going to give me this. And he said, I can only have this. I just had a conversation with a client this morning and I said, I understand that he is saying a lot of things, but guess what? He doesn't get to make the decisions. So I understand that's where you are right now, but every day you're going to wake up and you're going to assure yourself and you're going to take the next step. And eventually you will be in a place of, well, this is what it is, and this is my portion of it. And I can choose to take all of it, some of it, or none of it. Mm-hmm. But it'll be what you decide and not what he says.
I'm so happy you said that, because that's another thing I hear is he said he'll never give me child support. I'm like, well, then he's going to jail because it's the law, And I have fallen victim to that too. Typically when you're leaving a marriage, if you're the woman deciding to leave the marriage, it probably wasn't a good one. And there has been some emotional manipulation. So naturally you're going to hang on to this, like, but he said, but he said, but he said, and that in itself can be crippling. So let's give them all the clarity. What does a woman need to know about her finances or joint finances when coming out of a marriage?
Well, first of all, she needs to know her budget. So she needs to know what her needs are so that she makes decisions based on a need, not on an emotional attachment. And that refers to the marital home. Mm-hmm. She needs to know where her tax returns are and whether she signed them or not. She needs to have them. They are her right to have them. So if he says that she can't get them, she can get them. Her accountant can give them to her because it's a joint return.
You can get them yourself.
You can get them yourself. You don't need anyone's permission to get your own income tax return.
How would she go about doing that?
Well, there's this handy dandy IRS form number 4506 that you fill in and you mail in to the Internal Revenue Service, or you can even go online and access it that way. I think online it's called a 4506T, which means transcript versus a full copy of your document. And it will be provided to you because it is your right to have access to it.
Very interesting.
She needs to know all of her assets and all of her debts so that she can make clear decisions. She has to know what the ramification is for any division of scenarios. So there's many components to many assets. So what are they and how will they affect me in the long run? You don't just agree to a division because it's easier. It's easier if I take the house because our kids want to stay there. And it's easier if he takes the pension or any qualified monies because they're in his name already. And they kind of equal each other if you put them in columns next to each other. It doesn't really work that way. It may seem like it's fair, but it's certainly probably not equitable because there's tax considerations for all of these assets. There's a lot of work to move assets, but it's okay. It can be done. She needs to know that if he says it can't be done, it can be done. And if it can't be done, because they're already in payout mode with some assets, they need to know what their other options are.
So our process when developing the MDS financial portrait takes a person step by step by step so that it never becomes overwhelming. First of all, you start entering data, you do a budget with me. Catherine does an initial review, and then you start collecting your documents. So it's very structured, but it's also streamlined in a way that you can become engaged. And at any point, if you become overwhelmed, we step up and support that process. So while we're trying to help women, our goal is to help you become eventually the CEO or the CFO of your own life. We also provide the support to get you there. And sometimes it will take a while. And, we tell everyone you can't mess up, but we do like you to be engaged in the process. So by the time you have the portrait and we deliver that to you about 3 months after you start working with us, you know what you have, you know what you're dividing, and you know what it means to you in the future. So all of those very important critical documents that you may or may not have any awareness of as you approach the process, you'll learn to engage with them in a way that you understand what they are and what they mean to you.
Well, what if you're dealing with, like some of my clients, women, can't even ask the question to their husbands or soon to be ex-husbands, like, where is this? Or how much have we been spending on this? Or, he's been paying my credit card bills. I don't know, what kind of debt I have. That comes up a lot. And I know that, again, those are the types of questions that scare women away from even thinking about this, right? So how do you navigate that?
So with the credit card statements, accessing those is important because that's your lifestyle analysis, right? So a lot of women are use their credit cards for all of their spending. So they need to get copies of those statements, and they need to itemize what's theirs, what they're spending personally, what they're spending on the family, if they have children, and they might even uncover what their spouse is spending. He'll probably have a different statement in his account number, or some statements, believe it or not, they're both on the same statement, just will identify a different account number. But she could find an older statement as well to establish some kind of need there and get a pattern of the spending so that we could use that. She also should be able to look at old statements, old attachments to tax returns, and just start gathering them. It doesn't matter if they're outdated. If anything has a number on it, grab it, make a copy of it. The problem today is everything's digitally, so people aren't receiving mail at home. But what we engage in the services, our process is a neutral, non-biased way start. So the portrait doesn't really, it's contain information that they don't have to eventually give. So we have a huge success rate on getting both spouses to partake in our process.
Interesting.
And that's the beauty of it, because it's the discovery process that has to be done. And it's surprisingly enough, a lot of men are coming to us. Our percentages have gone up because they want to have the informed spouse, because it will move the process forward quicker. And they also want the spouse to understand what they think that they don't have, even though we uncover that they do have it. So they come into the process saying, yes, we want to give you this information because we want to move forward as well. The nice thing is, what we're not really pointing out is that the assessment that comes with our portrait. So the assessment also comes with recommendations and considerations. So if we uncover something, we will line it there. So if they end up in litigation or they go to their mediation, they don't have to be afraid to ask these questions, because we're asking the questions for them. They're simply reading our footnotes or our report afterwards, and it really empowers them because they have it right there. Because it is scary if you're being bullied.
That level of preparation is worth its weight in gold. I think, when you come in blind and you know nothing about this process, it's so easy to feel intimidated or feel backed into a corner, or, like you said, choose to make a decision based on not wanting to get confrontational because it seems easier. So I think this is fantastic. It really is an empowering tool. A lot of questions I get are around women having their own credit. So he's been paying for everything. I married him right out of college. I've never even had anything in my name. How am I going to be able to get an apartment? What does that look like?
Oh, that's a big deal. So tax returns show a lot of your assets and income, some debt, of course. Credit reports show expenses on what we call unsecured debt mostly. So those are the two areas where you first start identifying your lifestyle. So if someone's starting to establish credit, and Catherine, maybe this would be a question more for you, but we always encourage them to start applying for a simple credit card in their own name. It's not adverse. It's not lying. It's not cheating. It's empowering. So getting women to do that is a great first step for them. A lot of times they haven't taken the step by the time they've gotten divorced. So we do integrate them with credit counselors, or if they're buying a house or something, mortgage advisors, to really help them have a very clear way for their specific situation to create credit for themselves. Because a lot of times you can't even, get a new mortgage until you have 6 to 12 months of support under your belt. So those are the things we watch out for them during the process. So by the time they're done, if they're working with us, they have established the necessary credit to move on.
So do you think it's safe to say that this might be a process better started before the decision to leave the marriage?
Absolutely. Because honestly, how do you make a decision without having financial clarity? Oh. And how do you make a decision without establishing what your next steps are, even afterwards? Because you have a great platform, Michelle, for women to empower them and get them to move forward. It's so hard to move forward because at the end of a divorce process, everyone's pretty much left alone. And when the dust settles, you have information in front of you, but you still don't know what to do with it. So you pick up at a really great time for them to help them through that process, which is why we're so happy to be speaking with you. But before that even occurs, if they can't have an understanding of what their financial life will look like, how do they move on, right? How do they, yes, you have to get another job, or no, you don't have to get a job, but you have to volunteer somewhere. Like, you need to know what's out there for you. So for us, sometimes we have had couples that decided not to get divorced. One or the other says, hell, I'm not leaving now because I'm not going back to work. Or I've put up with this long, I'll stay, because they see what the finances are. But most people say, you know what, this is worth it to me because now I understand and I'm making these decisions for myself now. And I'm going to take what it is and I'm going to make my life better or happier. I'm not going to let this define who I am. So when they start with us, we either give them some tips to set up on what to do, whether it's establishing credit, setting aside some cash, not commingling some accounts, changing some registry, whatever it is. There could be a ton of things. And then when we get their portrait, they actually be able to see what options are available to them and what it will look like. And now they can work on their emotional side because they're focusing on the knowns in the financial world, not so much the unknowns. We don't do investing for them. We send them to their advisors afterwards. We stay neutral within this process. And it's really uplifting to watch them grow through that.
It's just so, I can't help but think about my mom in her own divorce process. Back in the early 90s, she was an immigrant from South America. We were living in New York, and my dad would give her cash every week to spend, and she would hide it and squirrel it away. And to this day, she's always like, honey, you gotta be putting money away that nobody knows about. You gotta be doing that. And it really is wise advice. But for her, it was literally like cash under a mattress. And it's so amazing that we created this world. And thank you for the compliment about my platform. But what you're doing is also just as important. Like, I'm a cheerleader. You're literally giving a strategy to being able to do this and help a woman stand on her own 2 feet. I mean, I hear, you can't imagine what I hear. He promised if I don't go after his trust or whatever it is, he'll take care of the kids for the rest of their lives. And I'm like, okay, did you get that in writing? Because, I hear all these promises and don't touch my 401k and I'll give you this and I'll give you that and leave my business alone and I'll pay for your car. Like all these things that they think are fair when there's just so much more to get after and learn about.
Right.
So,
we say that a lot.
Karen? I always say to them, if you get too much, I will personally help you write a check to give it all back. And in all of these years that I've been doing this, not one person has asked me to write a check to give it back.
And what I say is, can you define take care of? And can you define what pay for my car means? And can you define what does that mean in writing? And it doesn't mean what typically long term what you think it means conceptually.
Right.
Yeah. Michelle, I want to say something. I know your viewers can't see us, but I can see you. And if I could have recorded you and showed it, when you told that sweet story about your mom, you looked so strong and proud. Like your mom was saying, sweetie, you got to save this money. It's like she said it to you, and I get goosebumps because I get really emotional about this stuff. She said it to you because she felt so empowered that she would be able to take care of herself, and that she wanted you to have that same empowerment to take care of yourself, if only squirreling just a little bit of money away. So imagine how Karen and I feel when we're able to, yes, I agree with you, get from the get-go. If you come from the get-go, it's much easier. When we're able to equip you with the education and the knowledge on how you can squirrel away or protect yourself, even squirreling away knowledge, so that you can take pause and say, hey, wait, everyone, hold off, stop. I don't care what he says, and I don't even care what she says. I need to know what I'm going to say for myself moving forward. If we could do that nationally, divorce would be a much better place for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for that. My mom is the whole reason why I knew that I could get divorced and survive, because she did it having no support and having never had a job in her life and having to go into the workforce, with 2 kids. She was in America. So I that is a very inspiring and empowering piece for me. And I share so much about her because truly I felt I had somebody to hold my hand through who had been through much worse. But yeah, I mean, that level of empowerment is priceless. And, whatever it looks like to sit down and have your support financially, Karen and Catherine, worth it to be able to hold your head high and not lose sleep at night wondering how you're going to do it, because you know exactly how you're going to do it. You're going to do it. And
You're going to do it.
You'll have people behind you pushing you through.
Yeah. And you can confidently go through the process, because it is not the child's custody piece is a whole different matter, but the financial piece is truly at the end of the day a business transaction. Yes. So having the right information, the documentation, makes all the difference in the world. We just recently had a mediator attorney tell us that he used our portrait in mediating a couple through their divorce. And he said, it was so helpful because the husband was the money manager for the family. So it helped him understand that he really didn't know as much as he thought he did. And it empowered her to know more than she thought she could know. So they were on balance when negotiating their financial settlement.
I love that. This is some strong woman shit. I'm so glad.
I love that.
So before we start wrapping up, I never let my guests get away without sharing a favorite quote or something inspiring that has inspired them. So please let me put you on the spot.
Oh.
Boy, I have 2, if you don't mind. Okay. One is, divorce does not mess your kids up. It's how both parents behave before, during, and after divorce that could mess your kids up. So don't stay because you think you're going to mess your kids up. Just behave the way you want your kids to love you. Mm-hmm. 2 is, make the rest of your life the best of your life. When I got a divorce, I just said, you know what? I was 44 and I said, I'm not living in a lonely marriage anymore. I'm going to take care of myself. And I'm going to make the rest of my life the best of my life. And here I am.
That's great.
Thank you.
So I don't necessarily have 2 quotes, although I love quotes. I have 2 things that I say to people. And the first one is, find a piece or 2 pieces of happiness every day. When 24 hours, you can always find at least 2 things to be happy about. And when you're going through divorce, you can be so overwhelmed and stressed, you can forget to do that. So that's one of my pieces of encouragement. And the other is, every day, learn to stand in your truth and know your truth and what it is, so that when all of these things are coming at you, they're grounding you in your truth instead of making you get off the rails in some way. Yes. You're learning and identifying and rooting yourself in your truth every day. And that's one of the most important things that all of us can do, whether we're going through divorce or not, is really know what that is and own it and stand in it every day, and allow others to stand in their truth as well, because someone else's truth may not be the same as ours.
I love that. I think that's so poignant, especially for this place and time in our lives in the world and with everything that's going on. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing to keep in mind. Your truth really comes to light after a divorce. I will tell you that. I've never been more me since going through what I went through, and I would do it all over again just to feel the sense of knowing who I am. So I love that. Ladies, where can our listeners find you because they need to find you?
So our website is www.mydivorcesolution.com. One solution, no S's, because there's only one for each person. You can email us at hello@ck11.net, or you can call us, and our phone number is on the website. We're very accessible, we're very responsive, and we're very committed to helping anyone find their way.
And we are nationally. We deal nationally.
Sorry, if you're a Moms Moving On community member, they will be sharing a PDF that will be very helpful to kind of like sum this all up. And so you can have it in your back pocket if you are finding yourself in like a little bit of a rut navigating the financial piece of your divorce. So be on the lookout for that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Catherine.
I just was pointing out that we're national. We have clients all over the place.
Yeah, yes, very important, not limited to just one state, which is amazing about what you guys do. So I implore you to check them out. Thank you for listening. Keep listening. Keep sending in your requests and questions. I do read them. I love to hear them. I think you're all amazing. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I need to talk to you about co-parenting. Are you struggling with an uncooperative ex, issues with scheduling custody dates, a lack of communication, and financial responsibilities? Your relationship with your ex isn't over, it's transformed. That's why I want to talk to you about FAIR, the new app that's helping me and hundreds of other co-parents effortlessly communicate, create a shared calendar, keep track of expenses, prepare legal documents, and more. More importantly, it allows you to experience co-parenting in a totally new way, simply, inexpensively, transparently, and fairly. Use my discount code Michelle to start enjoying your co-parenting experience today. Do you have concerns about your ex's past alcoholism and party habits, especially during custody? Well, then I have to tell you about SoberLink. SoberLink has revolutionized co-parenting, not because of what it does, but because of how it does it. SoberLink does not just test for alcohol consumption, but get this, it immediately notifies the other parent if alcohol has been consumed and can also be set up to immediately notify the court. This instant notification enables a non-drinking parent to take the steps necessary to protect the children from the drinking parent. If you're interested in SoberLink and would like to learn more, go to momsmovingon.com/SoberLink to get your discount today if you mention Moms Moving On.